Hello, my paper peeps. Today I want to share with you how to add mixed media to your scrapbooks or journals. This is an easy technique that I think everyone, especially the beginner, will really truly enjoy. So let's get started. Today I'm working in the Java Journals, which is a DIY journal that allows you to add and subtract pages whenever you want to. And here we're using just printer paper. So I'm going to show you how to use mixed media with just your regular printer paper or watercolor cardstock. And you can actually use this on any scrapbook paper. The only things you need are a piece of acetate, paper towel, and really just a paintbrush with water, and the inks that you have at home. Now I like using Distress Oxides because they're a little bit more saturated in color. So I'm going to use the Vintage Photo Distress Oxide, and I'm just going to lay a little bit down on the acetate here. And with my paintbrush and a little bit of water, I'm just going to water that down. And then using the smooching or kissing technique, I'm just going to lay this on my paper. Now the key is really deciding where you want your focal point to be. And in this case, because the paper is really small, I'm just going to place my focal point in the middle. And so with that being said, we're going to just distribute the mixed media or the ink pretty much all over the page, making sure we get those corners because the middle portion of this page will actually be covered up with a focal point. The next thing I'll do is add a little bit of Distress ink in Walnut Stain. Now, I would usually use the Distress Oxide here, but I don't have the Walnut Stain in Distress Oxide. So I'm just going to use the ink here, and you can see really the difference. In this case, you may not see a big of a difference, but here I just wanted to add another layer of brown. Now you can use your embossing tool to dry the area or let it air dry itself. I find that when you use a drying tool, it does cause the paper to bow a little bit. So if you can kind of wait, I recommend that you just wait for it to air dry itself. Now after you lay down the background, I always add text stamps. And because the focal point is in the middle, the text stamps will pretty much be deposited along the circumference of that middle. Ideally, what we're trying to do is just draw the eye inwards toward the center point here. Now, after I use a text stamp, I always like to follow it up with something with an image, something that actually correlates well with the design of the journal or the scrapbook paper. And in this case, because it's the Java journals, I'm actually using these coffee stains to accent. You can see how I'm using this idea of just layering on top of the text and using that as a guide to where I place all my stamps. And then after that, you just follow it up with your focal point. And in this case, I'm using a frame. Now you can see there's a little bit of blue in the ephemera here that I've placed. So what I want to do is actually add a little bit of that blue in the mixed media. Now I didn't have a color that matched well with the color of that paint splash. So what I did is I took my Distress Oxide and I mixed them until I actually created something that was quite similar. And so here I'm using broken china and faded jeans. And then taking some water, blending those two together, I found that it created the look that I was wanting to achieve. And then using a brush stroke effect, all I did was I just deposited in the area here. And then just added my frame. That's as simple as you can get. Now you can use this on watercolor cardstock, and here I'm using the Distress Watercolor by Ranger. It's a heavyweight paper that's specifically used for watercolor and wet techniques. And the great thing with this paper is that it's double-sided. It has a textured side and then a smooth side, and you have the option of using either one of them. And here I just cut it to size, cut it to the size of the journal. And I'm just going to do the exact same technique on these ones, and you'll see exactly what that looks like. And when I usually do my scrapbook journals, I like to make multiple pages of these backgrounds. And the great thing is that if you don't like the white kind of hardness of the watercolor paper, you can just take your distress inks and then just distress the edges so that it matches the scrapbook journal that you're in. And since there is this layering effect of all the pages, you won't necessarily see these pages side by side. And now I'm just going to cut the center. I love this DIY scrapbook journal because, again, it allows you to add and subtract pages. If you screw up, it's always easy just to remove a page and redo it. And the great thing is that you can actually do these pages outside of the journal, which is really nice. Okay, say you're done with placing frames on, but you want to add like a text or a quote page to your mixed media. And here I'm just using one of my quote pages that I actually use as art pages for the binding system if you decide to remove those binding strips and want to cover up that binding system. These are great to kind of sandwich in the middle, and it really covers up those binding systems and becomes kind of like an art page between the pages. But here I'm just going to show you how I actually add it to the mixed media. Now you can easily just put some adhesive on the back and place it down, but I find that just doing that, there's something missing. And so I just want to show you the shadow effect that will allow that quote to actually really meld in and blend in with the background. And I think you'll really enjoy this technique. So I'm going to use that paper that the quote came in and use that as a mask. And then I'm going to choose a color that closely resembles the background there. And I think, you know what, we'll go with frayed burlap here. That seems to match quite well. Or you can do walnut stain, whichever. But we just kind of want that quote to really meld in with the background. And then what I'm going to do is start distress inking the border there. Now, because this is vintage, I'm not going to worry too much if if it slips a little, that's not a big deal. But the key though is you want to make sure you pull down that mask a little bit so that, it kind of shows through. You don't want it to be exactly the same size as the quote, or else you won't see it. And then you can see here, I just eyeball the sides. But I find that is a great way of adding quote pages to your mixed media pages. And do you see how the quote actually just seems like it's part of the page? So easy. I hope you really enjoyed this tutorial. If you want more mixed media tips and tricks, especially for beginner techniques, then you'll probably want to watch this video here. Until I see you in those videos, take care and have a fantastic week. Bye!